Hi, my name is Aaron Sarma. I'm really excited to bring this topic to you today. Today, we're going to be talking about Web3. It's a buzzword that we hear a lot these days. There are lots of publicity going on in the media. If any of you have been on Twitter lately, you'll see tons of people talking about cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or Ethereum. You'd hear people talking about NFTs, especially in the last year, it's been pretty hot. Lately, you're hearing a lot of stuff about the Metaverse. And today we're just going to be talking about whether or not is this a real opportunity or is it a myth? So my name is Aaron Sarma. I am the co-founder and general partner of Scale Up Malaysia and the co-founder of Remote Ventures. Before we move forward, I just want to say one thing. This is not investment advice. I expect everybody listening to this to look at this with a critical eye, judge everything I say, and in general, just in terms of looking at any sort of products like this, you should make your own decision as to whether or not you would like to make an investment or enter into the space. And I hope that this is just a taste for you to understand a little bit more about the space, and then you can go dig deeper and understand it a little bit better. So we'll start. I have 5 main blocks for this presentation. First block is a little bit of an introduction. So I thought I'd share a little bit about myself. I'm an entrepreneur, investor, and I'm sometimes a speaker. In 2015, I started a travel startup that I sold to AirAsia in 2017. It was called Touristly. It was a travel company. And right now, it is kind of a lot of what you see within AirAsia. We were kind of one of the early guys who came in and were involved in that initiative. In 2019, I co-founded a accelerator called Scale Up Malaysia. We invest and catalyze startups who are at the growth stage, and we've invested in 30 companies so far. In 2020, I co-founded a venture studio or incubator called Remote Ventures, and we've kind of helped build 5 new ventures within the ecosystem that are around today. So I've invested in a total of 35 companies, and this has all happened in the last 2 years. In Web3, I own a small portfolio of tokens, as some of you in the room may be also owners of tokens. I have purchased NFTs before, and recently I've kind of come aboard as an advisor for Unit Ventures. They're building a token economy for communities, and they're building communities all over the world. And so really excited to be a part of Unit Ventures as a part of my education in understanding about this space. I thought we'd begin just by looking into a little bit about how we got here. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate how things have evolved. In the early 2000s and the late 90s, we had what was called Web 1.0. And what was specific about Web 1.0 that was interesting was that it was very much read-only. Many of you may remember this period. Some of you may remember using Excite or Lycos or even the earliest versions of Yahoo or MSN. And the whole thing about the early internet was you would just read stuff, and people would just put effectively newspapers online and you just read it. Then about 10 years or so, thereabout, maybe a bit more than 10 years ago, we started looking at new kinds of platforms, right, which were called Web 2 platforms. And these platforms were interesting because these platforms allowed you to read and write. So if you've ever gone to Facebook, which I'm sure most people on this video presentation have done, or even Instagram, you're able to upload your own content onto Facebook. You're able to comment in the chat interface. So it's an interactive game you're playing with, not just yourself, where you're just reading and consuming information. You're participating in creating information that other people consume. And that's what we call the Web 2.0 economy. Web 3.0 has another layer, and that's what we call trust, right? So you're able to read, you're able to write, but you also have trust verifiable, whereby you're able to kind of understand who it is who is writing this. Is this person a real person? And is there value behind what the person is saying based on certain rule sets that are created? So Web 3.0 is the evolution of the internet. And so a lot of people looking at this space would say Web 3.0 is the new internet. What is coming next? And so that's kind of how Web 3.0 started. In Southeast Asia, where we live, Web 3.0 is actually busting. It's really growing really fast. And I thought I'd just give you a little bit of an illustration of what it looks like right now based on Web 2.0, where you have familiar names which you may see on the screen, such as Rakuten, Grab is there, Gojek is there, Oyo is there. And in Web 3.0, you see a lot of other players, like Polygon and Tencent and WIR, all in this space growing. And so Southeast Asia is quite exciting for the Web3 entrepreneurship space. The ecosystem is actually quite large. You're looking at a $81.6 billion marketplace by 2030. It's quite big. It's bigger than the GDP of some countries, including ours, actually. And I think it's something that is really, really interesting for you as people to get involved with, because it's going to be a huge economy moving forward. In fact, every big tech company is investing in Web3. Famously, Meta, as you know, has invested in the Oculus device. They're spending billions of dollars putting a VR headset on people's eyes so that you can then enter into a virtual world. Instagram recently announced just a couple of days ago that you'll be able to mint, which is to produce and purchase NFTs on their platform. Twitter, for example, was one of the first platforms to actually allow you to put an NFT as your profile picture. So every single platform is kind of doing something. Even guys like Tesla, Elon Musk last year was making noises about how eventually you can buy Tesla with Dogecoin or Bitcoin. So it's really exciting to see what's happening in this space. Gaming companies like Unity and like Sony are looking to use crypto as a part of the transaction mechanism within their games. So all major tech firms have Web3 initiatives. For some, it's a new line of business. So like Meta, completely different from what Facebook was. But for some of them, it's enhancements, right? So like Instagram, the creators already there. Let's add more things they can do with the creations they make and help them monetize it, right? So the big question that we should ask ourselves for some of these companies is this a fear of missing out, or what we call FOMO, or is this actual strategy? And I think the jury is still kind of out on this. But what's very clear is that everybody sees potential in this space. So let's talk a little bit about what is Web3 exactly, right? And the answer to this is kind of nuanced, right? Because Web3 means a lot of things to a lot of people, right? On one layer, it's what we call the blockchain, right? Understanding the space, which is about people being able to do different things within a little ecosystem. We'll talk a bit about that later, right? Crypto is probably one of those things that gets the most attention, which is things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and NFTs. That's kind of what's encapsulated in that crypto. And then the Metaverse itself being more popular thanks to what Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook is doing. But there are a whole bunch of other things too. There are things like DAOs or distributed finance like DeFi. There's mining, smart contracts, decentralized storage, and even AR, VR, and a whole bunch of stuff. So Web3 is actually like a catch-all for a whole bunch of different technologies, all built on similar ideas of common ownership of the internet rather than centralized ownership. And so to that point, let's talk about the blockchain itself, right? When the internet first started, and when we first started doing things online or on computers, let's talk about when we went on computers, we had a lot of decentralized networks. Meaning, remember, if some of you are old enough to remember this, in the early 2000s, every office had a server room. And for the young people out there, it's a room where you put a big device and people could actually access information, and all the information of your company is stored in that place. And so those networks could not talk to each other, but people within that network could get information. And then with Web 2, what happened was we moved to a lot of cloud-based or centralized networks. So now instead of hosting it in a server in my office, now you host it in the cloud, like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud, and you would host it in the cloud and you can get information from there, which is the current way the internet works. But it is centralized. So in this case, Google, Amazon, Alibaba would own that information. A distributed network means everybody owns information, and everybody owns the information through their personal device. And when something is done to change the information or the base information, everybody on the network is changed. One of the things that people used to ask me is like, is blockchain a chain of blocks or a block of chains? And the real answer is it's in fact a chain of blocks. And the blocks are unique because every block contains the same information and is owned by the individual. And if something changes within that block, the entire chain of blocks will have the information change. And that's something that's very unique to what blockchain presents, and which is why blockchain in itself has spawned all these new technologies, because you're now able to create new ideas and new economies around this concept. Cryptocurrency is the first thing, like you see on the slide, is virtual money, right? Which I think everybody knows. But what I think is interesting about cryptocurrency is because it uses theories around the blockchain to do things. So, for example, you are able to what they call use cryptography and an algorithm on the blocks. So certain things need to happen for you to have the cryptocurrency. This is what we call things like proof of work, or this is kind of like smart contracts, in order for the currency to have value. And as I mentioned earlier, with blockchain itself, there's an element of the decentralized network, which is how you form the basis of cryptocurrency. There are actually lots of cryptocurrencies. They're actually counting 1,200 cryptocurrencies out there. And every day there are new cryptocurrencies formed. In the height of 2021, there was reports saying that there were 1,000 cryptocurrencies being created every month. But basically there are 8 types, right? There are payment currencies like Bitcoin, right? Where you use it as a store of value to buy stuff, right? Then there are also cryptocurrencies that are used as for economies, right? So where Ethereum is famous for this, where you're able to own a digital asset with a smart contract where ownership can transfer based on certain activities, right? And people are excited about Ethereum for this exact reason, because it's not just money, it's money with brains, and which allows you to do different things. There are things like privacy coins, stable coins, where you're fixing the price of the currency with another stable asset such as gold or dollars or something like that, right? The utility tokens, which again, you use it for product or services. There's the security coins. Non-fungible tokens is the thing that you hear about, which is called NFTs, which we'll talk about a bit later. And decentralized finance as well, which is another part of it. Mainstream brands are adopting NFTs. So in fact, NFTs are pretty exciting now, because you see Nike, Budweiser, Adidas, all these brands are coming in, and even fashion brands need to use NFTs. NFTs right now have a global value as of last year of 11.3 billion. These are brands that are minting it. And even locally, I know a company like Aeon, for example, has minted NFTs recently. So very interesting to see the space and how this is developing. The idea of building an asset value in token, in the form of a token, it builds loyalty and revenue. So people are very interested in doing it. What remains to be seen is how these companies are looking at their investments in NFTs itself. For a lot of them, this is not really a new business. For a lot of these companies, it's a marketing cost. It's a good way to tell people that I'm in this space, I'm doing something in Web3, I'm cool, please come and interact with my brand. But I think when we see the transition from this being more marketing cost to actually being a real business, that's when it becomes kind of interesting when it comes to NFTs. In 2021, everyone was literally buying NFTs. What you're seeing here is the famous Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is one of the more famous NFT collections out there. There was a Malaysian who bought Jack Dorsey's first tweet for $2.9 million US, which is actually very interesting. And apparently the guy is in Malaysia right now. And so these are things that are interesting within the NFT space, where you're able to put a value on effectively a picture file, right? But the picture file is owned by you exclusively. I bought an NFT. The first NFT I bought was this girl who was from Klang. Her name is Visitra, and she came out in the local newspapers as saying one of those people, he's an artist who had a difficult time in Malaysia, but she last year made 1.5 million ringgit from selling NFTs to, and people like Snoop Dogg were people who bought the thing. And the picture on the left is her tweeting back at me for buying her NFT. So that was really interesting, just being a part of that as a part of the story. NFTs are interesting for people like this, right? Because when you're able to sell your artwork, it's not just simply about selling the artwork and for the initial transaction. Today, when you buy a physical painting, you buy the painting, and then if I were to buy the painting and sell it to my friend, the artist who initially painted the painting gets nothing. Leonardo da Vinci's family, for example, gets nothing for the Mona Lisa, no matter how valuable it is today. right? But with NFT, you can code your NFT to have value in it. And with that, you're actually able to actually transact value out of your token, which is really interesting. So the artist can continue to earn royalty every time their artwork is sold, which is how it becomes really interesting for artists. And it's not just limited to painting artists or people who paint, it's also music artists and anybody who does a creative work. NFTs could create a very new economy for them, which never existed before. The metaverse is also interesting. It's kind of a culmination of digital currencies. It's NFTs, it's infrastructure, it's VR, and a whole bunch of stuff being put together to create effectively virtual worlds, right? And you're seeing Mark Zuckerberg really spent a lot of money in this space, betting effectively the brand of Facebook on this. But in a more commonplace, for those who have kids, Roblox is effectively a metaverse, right? Your kids can live in there. They have entire lives in there. Same with Minecraft. And there are other virtuals, other Decentraland and Sandbox and Horizon venues. And there are a whole bunch of different places where people can interact online. Having tried it myself, I think it's really exciting. And we did it actually at an event hosted by Digital News Asia about a month or so ago, where a whole bunch of industry players from Malaysia gathered together, all in Oculus Rifts in the virtual world and interacted. And this is me. I think I look really good in the metaverse. So I thank whoever rendered that for me. And taking a selfie in the metaverse. So it was kind of fun. I must admit, though, I don't think I can do it for hours on end. I think after like 30 minutes, it kind of becomes an intense experience. Gaming, of course, is another very exciting space where people are actually building great products. You're seeing the new Web3 gaming opportunities really becoming very hot. Axie Infinity is one of those companies based out of the Philippines that's doing really, really well. People are really earning really good money by playing games using the Web3 interface where your tokens actually have value. Interesting to note, within the gaming space, tokens have actually been a part of games for years, right? So now what you're doing is instead of just it being in-store coupons or in-store value they can really use in the system, you're creating actually a monetary value to it, which you can then use to buy other things, which is really interesting. Here are some of the top 5 games around the world, which I think is really interesting to see kind of the traction of some of these products. So I think it's really interesting to see what Web3 is all about, what it can do. It's very fascinating the kind of businesses it can inspire. But the last few months, especially the last year, has been really difficult. Some of you know, Bitcoin and Ethereum have dropped in value significantly. NFTs have kind of had a bit of a bust. And I think it's giving people a lot of pause. As I mentioned earlier, the recent months have not been kind. Bitcoin saw the greatest deflation in a while. Just in mid-November, we saw a platform called FTX, which is a cryptocurrency exchange built for traders. And these guys actually have more or less gone bust. Sequoia Capital, who invested quite a bit in them, are writing off $150 billion worth of investment in the company. And so it's a tough time for anybody trading in cryptocurrencies, though it's an interesting opportunity for those investing now with the hopes that this may grow in time to come. NFT trading volume has also collapsed. It's about 97% from its January peak. The little chart on the right-hand side shows you kind of how it blipped, and then now it's kind of become a shadow of what it was before. So it's really interesting to see how the initial hype of Web3 kind of deflated a little bit. And of course, very, very recently, we've read about how Mark Zuckerberg had to fire 11,000 people, which was 13% of the entire Facebook workforce or the Meta workforce, after spending $15 billion on his Metaverse initiative. So really, really interesting, kind of sad news, in fact, for those people who lost their jobs, but of course, makes every one of us who are not in the space and looking in ask questions about, is there truly value in this Web3 product itself? I would contend that there is, in fact, value. And I would contend that what's really happening is that we're seeing a lot of the hype go out of the ecosystem, and now people have the opportunity to build real products. It's not just about the rah, and you can see all these kind of crypto guys who are out there in weird costumes and talking about their cryptos and stuff like that. I'm more interested in what the technology can bring to the world. And so I'm going to share with you 5 ideas which I think are really interesting for the world at large, and I'd like you to just consider them for a second. Firstly, think of what this could do for supply chain. Imagine if you could trace the trajectory of every product from the starting point to the customer's doorstep using currency little blockchain. All parties in the transaction can use the blockchain platform to reduce time delays, added costs, and also reduce human errors, because you'd be really surprised to see how much human involvement is involved in getting the product from the factory to your house every single time you make a Lazada order. Without any central intermediary in the process, it also reduces fraud significantly. And by reducing the amount of resistance in the process, it extends to create more clean tech and green tech, which is actually better for the environment. So that's one idea that I think is really worth considering. The other thing is, and after recently going through an election, future-proofing the voting system. Our voting systems around the world have not changed for decades, if not more, right? And I think we now can use new technologies, such as blockchain technology, to kind of create a chain of millions of nodes that will support the number of voters simultaneously. It is immutable, so people cannot change the record without everybody knowing about it. It's encrypted, it's decentralized, and this will result in an incorruptible database. And also, the network can't be taken down by third parties. So I'm really excited to see who creates the first blockchain voting system and implements it in their country, because I think that will create a very, very interesting space. Imagine not having to go to a polling booth to vote, but you can do it from your phone because it's all encrypted on the blockchain. That's really exciting to me. Retail can also change, right? Where we've had loyalty for a long time. It comes at Bonus Link and B Cup by Bajaya. Another real application is overhauling the retail experience with loyalty rewards. One thing we've noticed is that we've had loyalty for a long time, which used this concept of points. Bonus Link does it, Azure Rewards does it, B Card by Bajaya Group does it as well. But using blockchain technology, you can have higher transaction speeds, because right now, have you ever tried to redeem points from any of these vendors? It takes a long time. But with a blockchain and a crypto wallet, you're able to do it much faster. You can create the value, store the value for customers in a safe and immutable environment. And cryptocurrency transactions are not bogged down by centralized authorities, because everything is with a smart contract that's already programmed into each of the blocks in the chain, so that you don't actually have to go and get authorization by a human or a centralized person to get it done. It's actually much faster, much more efficient, which means handing out rewards can be kind of simultaneous and almost instantaneous for the end user. Number 4, copyright and ownership protection. Just now when we talked about NFTs, we talked about how the artist gains control over the information they have and the content they create, and it's not given to a third party. Digital copyright data can be stored in the blocks on the blockchain, which is transparent and secure. No third party will be able to claim ownership without showing proof of the same on this transparent blockchain. So nobody can copy your artwork or your music. Everything is kept there. And this is where NFTs come into play. This is where other kinds of technologies come into play within the Web3 space, which is really, really exciting for artists. And it's why you're seeing a lot of artists all over the world embracing Web3 as a way to get their content to their fans. Another one that's really interesting is personal loans and other forms of finance, where blockchain technology actually removes inefficiencies like the KYC process, or actually just a human that you have to interact with. Using a smart contract, things can be pretty seamless, and everything can be done from your phone or your computer, and you can get a loan pretty quickly because everything is done through this contract that is created without like a middleman or a bank to verify stuff. Everything's already pre-verified using Web3. But there's so much more. I won't get into it. There's a whole bunch of stuff within this rabbit hole we call Web3, and I would encourage you to do it. So just a couple of final thoughts before we close out, right? Number 1, I think Web3 is here to stay. I think the fundamentals of the technology is strong, and entrepreneurs need to find product market fit. 23 billion has already been invested in Web3 projects, and we'll likely see more entrepreneurs build what we call the new internet. Number 2, businesses fundamentals will still remain. So Web3 is not different from every other business out there. The laws of gravity will still apply, which means you have to build a good business, right? And I think entrepreneurs need to make sure that, using these new tools, they build good businesses on top of it. So I would say to you who's watching this broadcast, if you don't understand the technology, you don't understand what it does, don't invest, learn more, right? Because early adoption is where we're at right now. Take the time to learn about this technology. to get in. There's plenty of time to get in and to really make a killing in this space and to really maximize your returns from Web3, but learn a little bit more before you jump in, right? And it's a long game, right? The modern internet took 20 plus years to get to where we are today. Web3 may be faster, but it's not there yet. So do your research, keep up to date with the latest trends, and see how Web3 can be applied in the real world. This is me. My name is Aaron Sarma. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I'd love to connect with you. If you can scan the QR code, you'll connect with my website. I've got a newsletter you can also follow as well to see what we're doing at Scale Up and at Remote Ventures. I hope this has been a good session for you. Have a good day. That's all from me.